What's up, Dave?
What's up, man?
How's it going?
Good. It's good to be here.
All right. So, for those of you who don't know Dr. Dave, this is Dr. Dave. He's from Unbreakable Body Lab. It's about 15 minutes. You can't tell what direction I'm pointing, but that way. 15 minutes that way. It's on Amherst?
On Amherst, near the domain, about a mile from the domain. So you'd exit Mopac, or from Mopac, you'd exit Parmer, take a left, and take a left on Amherst, and I'm right there.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I actually played Little League Baseball.
That's right.
At Balcones.
That's right.
I forget what ages, but it was coach pitch up through the middle school years.
Yeah.
Just probably the reason I've talked to you so much.
Just about the shoulder.
All of my shoulder
got
issues.
The old Little League elbow.
I'll let you make fun of me.
I got the Little League elbow.
So I got left arm and I got right arm here.
Yeah.
The old.
You got to work
so
on
that'll be the conversation after this.
That's called a mobility issue.
There we go.
That's what that is.
Okay, so that's a good
pitch, man.
segue into what Unbreakable Body Lab is.
Yeah, right.
And why that would have to do with my terrible shoulder.
Yeah. So to give people background of who I am, what I do, I've been a chiropractor for 10 years, but I consider myself more of a holistic healer, mind, body, spirit. I even started kind of going into that. I started getting into that after, you've known me now for
8 years.
8 years. Yeah. So here's what's really fascinating. I was in the original location that you met me at, right? Which is over on Research Boulevard.
Uh-huh.
And then I went into a huge training facility. It was 16,000 square feet. It was massive. And I was like, man, this is amazing. I'm working with professional athletes, all this stuff. But what was interesting about it was the owner, he ended up just kind of being really aloof. He was really charismatic when I first got in there, and then he became really aloof and kind of guarded. It was really weird. He lost 30 pounds in the 10 months that I was there. He lost 30 pounds in a really rapid amount of time.
Was he trying to lose weight or?
No, this was a very unhealthy way of losing weight. So the reason I bring that up is that he then 5 months later from that point was hey, rent hasn't been paid in 3 months. We're all getting kicked out. And so I'm what do I do? I didn't know where, because I actually took out a banknote to build out. So it'd almost be if you're hey man, I'll give you this entire corner, you just have to build it out to be your clinic.
And for those of you who've never been to Dr. Dave, his practice is an office with a massage table, or not but a chiropractic table that you can do work on people. But then there's also the area with weightlifting things and kettlebells and dumbbells where you can do rehab and prehab work.
Right.
So you've always needed that kind of dual space.
Yeah.
You're not someone that's sitting in a classic massage studio. Your facility needs those extra things.
Right. So the way I train or the way I heal is through movement and mind and body, and that's kind of what I was how I got into that was through this genesis of this, you call it struggle, chaos, he tells us that we're all getting kicked out. And so I go into this tailspin mentally, emotionally, thinking I don't know what to do. Where do I go?
Yeah.
So I end up going north for a while up to Pflugerville, and I don't know why. It was just I just needed a place to practice.
Yeah, when you get back against the wall with nowhere to go. Because Austin's real estate's hard.
It was, yeah.
You don't just get to pick, I want to go there.
Right,
it's no, there's got to be something available.
And I literally had 48 hours to figure something out.
Yeah.
So I was just calling people, and I was like, hey, you guys have a spot? So I ended up finding a spot in a gym up in Pflugerville, and I realized I was there for 6 to, 9 months. And that was just not going well, right? Because it was I didn't live in Pflugerville. I didn't hang out there. I wasn't bumping into people. I wasn't doing stuff like this with people from Pflugerville. And so I was man, I need to go back to Austin. So then I was virtual. I'd be at one gym one day and another gym another day. And it was okay, but I didn't have a home base, right?
Yeah.
And again, this is all part of the sort of the all going through my own genesis mentally, physically, spiritually, all the things, right? Mm-hmm. And so found this location up by where I'm at now, and it just so happened that this guy was yeah, man, I got an opening, and now he's we're sort of roommates, office mates, but it's amazing because it's beautiful, it's in a great part of town, It's everything I've ever wanted. And I'm like, this is awesome. This is exactly what I need. So why I bring that story up is because through that process, I learned how mindset, how emotions ties into the physical self, and how that affects not only your performance in a gym, but it affects your performance and just the results you're getting in work, in life, in everything. Because if you want to get the result, like we all want results, right? We all want like the results in our relationships or the results in our career or whatever. It's like if you're not primed mentally and emotionally, and I call it spiritually, like you're just gonna fall apart, right? Yeah. Like it's just gonna show up. It's gonna show up as maybe knee pain or like low back pain, whatever, or like you're just gonna plateau in the gym, whatever. Like it's as if like there's this like weird psychological thing that we do to ourselves, that self-fulfilling prophecy that stops us from being the individual we can be. And so that's part of my practice, man. I heal and just the whole thing. So it's cool.
I think that's one of the reasons we're here talking, is because every time we get together, we go down these paths and just talk about it. So it's no surprise to them that I'm obsessed with like lifestyle things. And
mindset.
Exactly. And it's such a huge piece. So what specifically from the emotional side of things, is it like cortisol and the stress hormone, or is it a little bit of that and a little bit of other things? Like what specifically is having that negative impact?
Yeah, so there's quite a bit, and just the pure mechanics of it, you're correct. It is, if you have a thought of stress, and it could be like, it doesn't have to be like a lion jumping out. It could literally be like, I got to pay taxes, or I got to do this bill, or like my child is crying, or, and my boss is on my ass,
We could probably, find a million things from today to name.
Right. And so the interesting thing, especially about, let's say, the limbic system, which is like, so I'll put it there's three sort of like layers of the brain. The prefrontal cortex is like the new part of the brain, which is like rational thought, like high level thinking, problem solving. Then you have what's called the limbic system, which is like below that. That's like emotion. And then you have underneath that the brain stem, and the brain stem like controls like heart rate, respiration, all that subconscious stuff that you don't have to take care of, right? Like you don't have to think about it. And so oftentimes when we're emotional, what's happening is that our prefrontal cortex isn't working. It's like we flip our lid, is like the term I've heard used before, where so you can't think rationally, you're thinking emotionally, and you're like, somebody cuts you off, and you're like, scream at them on the road or whatever. And so what happens then is that our body is flooded with neurochemical and biochemical called cortisol, and there's a bunch of other like stress hormone, norepinephrine, epinephrine, etc. And what that does is that turns off the vital organs that help you digest food, and your heart rate and your blood pressure, and and so like we're just constantly in that state of fight or flight. And when that happens is because we're shutting down like our digestion. Like we can't process food. Like we could eat all the organic food we want. Yeah. But it's not getting into our system because we're just constantly under stress. And so people don't realize that 90% of the things you do are going to be subconscious. And in fact, it could be even more. But like, I'm sure people kind of know, like, and just become aware of this. This is like what's kind of a fun practice. It's like just become aware of all the habits you have, right? Like, you're going to get up out of the same side of the bed, and you're going to grab your slippers, or you're going to go to the coffee pot and do the same thing. And then you're going to, and it's like this sort of like rote mechanism. And so if you become aware of your habits for a second, you can like almost take a step outside of them, because what you're doing is that you're literally entraining in your brain the same neurochemical, the same biochemical, those same emotions, and then you're going to get the same results in life. And so part of my job is to help people just become aware of that, and then go through the process of healing it, neutralizing it, so they can actually just even get to the wellness state. Because we all want to be well. Like a lot of us want to be performing. Like if they're doing CrossFit, right? Like they want to perform, but you got to be well first.
Yeah,
right? Like,
exactly.
If you can't perform if you aren't well.
And that's the big thing we've been pushing. The whole time, but especially recently, is when people are upset with their results or their performance, it's most of the time we've got too much stress, we're not sleeping, we're not eating
Absolutely,
well, we're not taking 10,000 steps a day, we're not doing all of these other things that work together to make you well, that can push these other things up. And then we talk all the time about how interrelated everything is, and when you finally start sleeping, that makes exercise easier, and it makes this easier, and it makes eating healthy easier, and then when you're not sleeping, it has all of these negative effects. So it sounds like what you're saying is the exact same thing.
Absolutely,
when you get stressed out, or when you're mentally in a really good place, it has either this snowballing, confounding, positive or negative effect on everything else.
It's like a positive feedback loop rather than like a negative feedback loop is like sort of like almost like a computer system, or like just or the thermometer is a perfect example of a negative feedback loop. So what that means is like when there's like the thermostat gets to a certain level, it shuts off, and so then it it either gets warmer or colder depending on if you have heat or cold going on. And so with this, it's a positive feedback loop, meaning good begets more good and bad begets more bad, and people don't realize they're in that cycle, that tailspin. And one of the big things that I'm trying to teach, with my practice and just with what I'm doing, is that you just become aware of this. Like this is like a real thing, that we are in a tailspin just from our society's perspective. Like we're all like we're sort of like reaching, like the medical model makes you believe that you're healthy unless you have feeling, right? Like a certain like symptom, right? But that's not the case, because what they don't teach you is that we're all under the same physical laws of nature, right? Physics, like entropy and enthalpy, and we're all aging. We got to eat, we got to rest, we got to like sleep, And so if you optimize for those things that create recovery and put order into your body and your mind, then you will create wellness. And then again, on top of that, you can create performance. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that's just spot on with everything we always talk about. It's so good. And I think that's really that's what makes me gravitate to you so much.
Yeah.
And it's what makes probably both of us cringe at so many other people in our own professions. And chiropractors can get a bad name because everyone thinks like you go in, they crack your back, and then send you on your way.
And then you're on your way, right.
There's terrible CrossFit coaches out there too that's just like just fucking go faster. And it's like, well, that's not what we're doing in here. So that's why I again really gravitate to you, because finding the people that have that bigger picture approach, and being like, being honest with people. It's like, look, I cannot help you if you're expecting to walk in here and for me to touch you and walk out perfect. It's I can't help you. It's like if you're expecting to come in here and just be able to go hard and do whatever the heck you want, and you're doing the WOD that's on the board, it's like I can't help you. That might work in a very short period of time, and give you what you're asking for, but it's we got to give you what you need.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one big thing that I touch on when anybody comes in the office. I just like shoot them straight, because like one of the misconceptions with the medical model is that I go see a doctor once and then I'm good.
Yeah, they give me a pill, I'm better.
And then I'm better, right? Or like then I just do the pill protocol. Well, that's not this like. That has obviously gotten us as a society somewhere, right? And that somewhere is the highest rate of disease and the highest...
50% of people have a chronic disease. I think it's 40% of people are obese. 30% have diabetes or pre-diabetes. 25% are on medications, and I think half of those people are on multiple medications. The stats are disgusting.
It's crazy, and the cost is obviously just as high, right? So it's like, so average cost for us is 3 times what the next even highest country would be. So like, for every dollar they're spending, we're spending 3 for the same thing. And that doesn't mean that our system is any better. In fact, I think the World Health Organization figured that we were like 38th of all developed nations, which is crazy, right? Like what? Like what is happening? And it's because we were told something. Like we were told the wrong thing, that health is not feeling symptom, when in fact it is. It's more of a matter of function, and kind of what you're teaching up here, obviously, and what I'm teaching is the same is aligned philosophically, in that when somebody comes into my office, like one adjustment isn't going to get them to where they need to be. And in fact, using a chiropractic adjustment can help them be well. It can also help them perform. A lot of people think, oh, I just need to get out of pain, but it's actually not even, I don't even use it necessarily for that. I use it to help them improve their function so that when they come out here, that their shoulder works so that they can get the overhead press, or they can do the overhead squat, or their T-spine function is there, right? Because everything is just jacked, right? And so we just help them go through that path, that process. And so, again, that's from the physical side. If you can imagine the mental emotional aspect of that, and why I always bring this up is like, if somebody was mentally depressed, right, that's going to show up in their posture, right? And the same thing is like if somebody's like mentally confident, that's going to show up in their posture.
What am I telling you right now?
Right, yeah. What are you telling me?
What do you think about me?
What are you telling me? Well, just letting you know.
You have a kidney infection.
Exactly, right? But that's the thing, like, if somebody's depressed, what do you think their posture?
Yeah, they usually
they're going to be here, right? They're going to be guarded, right?
Smaller,
they're going to be guarded. But if somebody's confident, their shoulders going to be back. They're going to be that good position, and we know that good position can actually, it's both ways, right? Mental can affect physical, physical can affect mental, and so you have to work with all aspects of the individual. You can't just work with the physical being. And I used to be that guy, right? I used to be just like, Dr. Dave works on the body, but
because that's what everyone's asking for,
right?
That's who they want you to be. They want you to be someone that's like, my shoulder doesn't work.
Right.
I don't want to come to you 10 times. I want to come to you once. I want you to fix my shoulder. It's like, that would be great.
Right.
And then when we're new to all of this stuff, it's like, oh yeah, I want to work out it's like, I can get you in shape in 3 months.
Totally.
It's like year one, I told that to people because I was if you work hard for 3 months, it's like, yeah, they got, and then it's like, no, then we learned that's like, oh no, you can't do that.
You can't do that. You can't do that.
That doesn't. So then I think we've gotten to the point now with both of our things respectively, where we're confident in what people need to do, and we're not willing to compromise what we're giving people,
right?
Because so it's like, just because they're asking for this, we're not like, yeah, we can do that for you. It's like, no, you're asking for this because of this reason.
Yeah.
And here's the reality of what it takes to get you what you want.
Absolutely.
And I'm sorry, that is not what you want.
Right.
But this is what it'll take, and we can help you get there.
Yeah.
And it's doable, and it's absolutely accessible, but but you got to trust us. We've been doing it for a long time, and the reason we don't do that is it doesn't work.
It doesn't work, and you sort of like, once you realize that as a practitioner, as a provider, you realize like you're almost like shamming people by telling them the other way when you know that this way is the correct way. Yeah. And the hardest part is to get people to wake up to that, right? To wake up to like, this is a lifestyle. This is not like, I'm going to go to the gym once and I'm going to drop 30 pounds, right? Like, there's no such thing.
You don't eat one salad and lose weight.
Exactly, right? You don't just breathe once, right? You don't just eat one meal. You don't just sleep once. Like, you got to keep going through the practices. And it's because, and the way I describe it when people come into the office is I do a quick whiteboard sesh with them, and we identify why that's the case. It's because of the physical laws of nature. It's entropy and enthalpy, and if we can just, and not to bring people.
So for those of those, not me, for those of those who don't know those terms, can you explain those real fast?
So entropy is the second law of thermodynamics. It's the reason we age. It's the reason we break down. It's the reason we get injured or sick. It's the law of breakdown, right? It's chaos, right? It's the reason, like, if for instance you saw in Taoism, you know, the yin and the yang, the dark side, right? That's chaos. That's breakdown, right? Again, this is just the nature of our existence. Like, we know it's a thing, but we're not like announcing it. Because if you announce it, then you got to deal with it. Yeah. Right? You know, like, oh crap. Fun. Yeah, I know, right? Like, I actually have to breathe on purpose. Damn. Like, you know, like, people don't want to, like, they just want to, like, yeah, I just breathe because I breathe. It's like, no. What if you stop and you actually focused on your breath and you put order into your system? That's a whole nother animal. We'll get to that later. But on the other side of breakdown is the law of order, or enthalpy. It's literally taking, like, do you ever find it weird? I always found this really fascinating. We actually have to eat stuff from the earth. Right, we have to like consume it, and then it goes into our body, and it does like stuff inside of our body, and then it like, you know, then we like continue to, you know, it's like we actually like eat plants and animals, right? Like things that are growing on.
So my wife Alex said something that was really funny. because somewhere something said like, yeah, and platinum is only found in like stars. She was like, everything here was found from the universe. Like, oh yeah,
exactly.
It is so weird, but it's like it is weird to think about. It's like, we're just taking things out of the ground and putting it in us, and our body somehow knows what to do with these molecules.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it knows, right? There's like that innate intelligence in us that knows exactly what to do with those molecules. So all you have to do is just get out of its way, right? Like, and not to go super woo on people, but that's kind of it. Like, if you cut your arm, you just got to get out of the way. How do you do that? You clean the wound, right? Take the thing causing the trauma away, right? So if it was like a nail, you take it out, you clean it so it can do its thing, and then maybe you'll eat some vegetables to help the healing process and cover it, and don't do anything to it, and then you're good. Right? And so that's the nature of
your body knows what to do to heal. You don't need to sit there and be like, heal.
Right. Yeah. So there's an innate intelligence, and so again, all you have to do is just get out of the way. And so the way you get out of the way is you I call it taking the gas can away from the fire, right? So like the fire being that law of breakdown, it's always happening. Like, we're always aging, but the gas can is stress. It's like, and there's multiple forms of stress, right? There's chemical stress, there's physical stress, there's mental stress, and then what I call spiritual stress. And a lot of people aren't talking about that, and that's simply, if you're working at IBM and you need to be a dancer, right? It's that, right? It's like, I'm not doing what I know I should be doing, or I'm not an artist, or maybe you knew you needed to open a CrossFit gym.
In some way, you're not getting fulfilled on that bigger purpose.
Exactly,
like,
right. And
you're kind of just, you feel like you're just like,
absolutely.
Does anyone even care what I'm doing?
Absolutely. And that literally breaks people down, because now mentally, emotionally, they're shut down. And then physically, they start to manifest disease. Chemically, they're all toxic. Like,
and then eating crappy food is stressful.
Not
sleeping is incredibly stressful.
And so then what happens is they go into the darkness and they start to break down. And so again, like the 4 forms of stress are those. And so all you have to do is recognize that, and then eliminate the things that are causing more breakdown. Right. So like plastics and pesticides and toxins. From a physical perspective, it's like poor mechanics, poor posture, joint position is off, right? From a mental side, it's having negative thoughts, having negative beliefs. It's like telling people off in your head, or saying that you hate somebody when you really don't, right? Like a lot of people don't realize that they do this, but they hate on the people they love. Like, husband and wife do that a lot. Like, if my wife does something that's like super annoying, like, leaves things out and I'm like, I used to do that, but then I realized like, why? Like, I love her. Why am I hating on her for doing that? And I would ask her, I was like, do you like hate on me? And she's like, yeah, I do that. I was like, oh my God. And then I asked more people, and they're like, yeah, I do that to my husband or wife. And it's like,
so I just read this book. And I'm reading the prequel to the book right now, but it was called Leadership and Self-Deception. Have you heard of that? It's by the Arbinger Institute. So it was written not by one person, kind of as a company. But its big thing, to sum it up, is just viewing other people as other people and not like things in your life.
Right.
And the cool thing I thought was that I don't view you as being less important than what's going on here. But I also don't need to view you as being more important. So I don't need to give you my... I don't need to do everything that I can possibly do for you. Right. I just need to understand it's like, no, this is Dave. Yeah. He's got a lot of stuff going on in his life. He's just the guy next to me in traffic. Right. He's just trying to go home. Right. He's not this object in my way. He's a person, and we're both just trying to get home. Right. And that, with all these like little household things, is really over the last few weeks helped me not be the asshole to my wife. Right. It's just like, and so one of the points it makes is like, so when you drop something down on the floor, and you kind of kick it under the table, it's like the only reason you're doing that is because you want to be seen as somebody who doesn't do that. Yeah. And it's like, because all you care about is how people perceive you. Yeah. Or if you leave it there, then you're saying, oh, Alex's time is less important than my time.
Oh, right.
And now it's her job to pick it up because so it's like if you start so it's
I feel that.
It's kind of that book was awesome. It was leadership and self-deception.
Okay.
And it was given to me by somebody. Whenever someone gives me a book, I'm just like, now I have to read this thing that I don't want to read. And then I read like one page and I was like, dang it, this is going to be really good.
Dude,
I loved it. It was so good.
It's so funny how, like, when it's like the universe provides, right? It's like given to you and you're like, oh, I got to read this now. And then it's just like, oh my God, these are all the lessons I needed.
Yeah. And then
so
you always think it's like, well, this person gave this to me. What were they thinking about me? Like, what did they know that I didn't know? It's like a real, like, sly, like, hey, here's something you need to work on, buddy.
There is a book, it's called Way of the Superior Man, and I've been very cognizant of who I give that book to for that reason, because it hits you hard.
And you don't want them to think like, hey, this is what I think of you.
Right. Or like, you should live up to this ideal. Because it touches on all the aspects of life as like a modern man and like kind of the...
What was that one again?
It's called The Way of the Superior Man. And
so if I look it up on my own, then I don't have to think about what's Dave trying to tell me.
Right, exactly. But I mean, like I said, it's not taboo in the slightest. It hits every aspect of like everything from male sexuality to why do we want to work so hard to why are we so driven to like all those things. It's like it hits everything, and that's why I've been it was one of the most profound books I've ever read, and I'm really like who do I give this to you?
Yeah.
So I've given it to a couple other men that I felt could handle it.
Yeah.
But it's definitely...
So you didn't give it to me. So.
I didn't give it...
He can't handle this. He's not ready. Not ready for this.
It's like, well, that's the thing. It's like, what would you think if I gave it to you?
Yeah,
That was one of those things.
I just read another book too, and so I've been trying to not give people books because at the end of the book, it was just like, okay, I know what you're thinking.
Yeah.
Who can you give this book to?
Oh, right.
And then it immediately says, what you should do is implement this in your life first.
Oh.
So instead of thinking, oh, this is for that guy Carl,
Right. How
about you take it yourself and actually do it, and then if a year from now you're like, this actually was cool, give it to Carl.
I love that.
But because I read something that's like, oh, this person needs to read this. It's like, no, I need to read it, and I'm just not accepting that these are my faults.
That is so powerful, and kind of touching on what we were talking about earlier with like the wife thing, right? So like I would give my wife books thinking she needs to read them.
If only she would stop kicking those blueberries under the table. It's like, no, all those blueberries are mine.
I know.
I do that.
Dang it. Oh, so
yeah.
I actually started listening to that advice where I like took responsibility and had to look in the mirror and be like, I do those things, and then what I had to do, and this is like some of the mental emotional stuff that I teach. I went through a process of what's called neutrality, right? So kind of what you're mentioning is like the guy in the car is just a guy in a car, right?
Yeah.
Like he's just trying to get somewhere, right?
Yeah.
No different than this is a table and that's a whiteboard and that's a window. It's like it's all just like a situation, like it just is.
Yeah.
It just isness, right?
He's not there to be in your way.
Right.
He's there because he's living his life.
Right, exactly. And so for me, the process of healing, like it was like a stepwise progression. Like there wasn't like the thing I think a lot of people are looking for. It's like, what's the one thing I need to do? And I used to think that too. I was like, oh, there's gonna be one thing, like one modality that I'll get. It's like, no, there's like a bunch of modalities that it's like you can't just do overhead squat.
Yeah.
Right. You have to do single arm press, and you have to do pull ups, and you have to do squat, and you have to.
And we get that all the time. As someone just saw an internet video on. This is the move, or this is the weak body part. Right. And then they get real, so like weight vest. It's so now if I just wear a weight vest for every body weight exercise, I'm going to get so strong. It's like, it's not quite how it works.
Exactly, yeah. Or like if they want to do muscle ups, like you can't just do muscle ups. you have to do pull-ups, and you have to do ring dips,
exactly.
and you have to do
and you have to rest.
Yeah.
And you can't just do them every day.
Right.
And you don't do one day, 2 the next, 3 the next, 4 the next. It's like, if that worked, that's what we would do.
Right.
It's like, that's what we would do.
Yeah, for sure. So I already forgot what I was talking about.
Oh, sorry. guy in the car.
Oh, yeah. So you look at the situation. We're talking about neutrality. That's what we're talking about, which is perfect. So you have to look at the situation because everything in the universe is relative, right? So, like, you can't have big without short or tall without short. You can't have rich without poor. You can't have happy without sad. And so why that's really important is because I would look at the sadness or the anxiety or the depression or the whatever name, like, emotion in a box, right? And we label as negative. I would put meaning to that. And in that meaning, I would cause more negative. And so, again, it was that positive feedback loop. I'd be like, you know, like...
And thinking something's wrong with you.
Yeah.
Or it's like...
Well, then it was both like, I knew that I was aware of that because I was meditating and I was doing these things. And I was like, you become aware, but that's only like one step. Yeah. But then what I would do is then I would like, oh, man, like I keep doing all this personal development work. What the heck? And then I would like look at my wife and be like, you're to blame.
Yeah.
You know, like that wasn't the right choice. and so then I'd be like, Jenny, we need to talk, you know, and then we'd talk and invariably I'd be like, oh, I'm doing that, you know, and she'd be like, yeah, see, like you're like, I was like, oh, I get it now. And so what I teach now is a process of what's called neutrality, which helps people see the situation as it is, not as they think it is. And that's the big thing, all right? The guy in the car, whatever. It's like the situation is what it is. You can't think of the negative, whether like the relationship or the finances or the, like, I can't get the muscle up. Like, you just see it as it is, right? Take your ego out of it. And then from that space, you can actually, almost like a heat-seeking missile, like you're failing, and then you fail, and then you fail, and then you fail, and you fail, and you keep failing, but you're failing forward. And so why that neutrality is so important is because, again, it allows you to actually step forward rather than sort of like sitting in the, like that person's further along.
Yeah.
You know, like you can actually, at least you can start to get the lesson so you can move forward, and you can actually accept the responsibility. Because I was taking responsibility. I was like, I take responsibility, but I wasn't accepting the responsibility. Yeah. Because accepting responsibility means that you accept your own brokenness and your own depressions and your own hurts and your own pain. And so that process is super important in, again, healing, wellness, and like when we're talking about like performance, like mindset performance, like pretty hard to be the top salesperson in your company, or, you know, to be the best artist, or to be a great entrepreneur, or to be a great coach. Like performance-wise, if you haven't healed within yourself those trepidations, that hurt, and then have a daily practice to create wellness, because that's where most people get it wrong, where they're like, oh, I've healed, I'm done, like we were talking about earlier. Yeah. Like you have to constantly train the wellness, and that's what, like, even coming out here and like not really working hard, like, yeah, you'll be well, but you're not going to perform. And because of the fundamental nature of life is expansion and growth, you actually you're actually doing yourself a disservice by not pushing yourself enough. And of course, you got to give yourself time to recover, but like you got to set the objective and you got to go after it.
Yeah, there's times to go and there's times to let it cool off.
Absolutely,
and rest, and there's times to go. And
and that's what I actually really appreciate about what you guys are doing up here, because a lot of CrossFit gyms that I've been to, they're all like, go, 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 go. And I won't name names. They are in Austin, but it's the reason I don't go to those places anymore. But it's you got to be able to just take a step back and allow yourself to recover. And so that's kind of it, man. Yeah.
Well, so what? Someone's got issues going on.
Oh yeah.
So
we all have issues.
What are like the baseline things that they should just be doing on their own? Yeah. And of course, like, you know, we get stuck sometimes. Like, okay, but it's so much better if I come to you and I'm like, hey, here's what I've done. Here's what I do every day, and then you can be like, oh, well, now I don't have to tell you these basic 101 things, and we can jump straight to really narrowing down, instead of you being like, well, the problem might be one of these 30 things, right? Because of what you've already done, now I know the problem is. So like, what on like a daily or a weekly or monthly, whatever it might be? Like what should people be doing on their own? That's
actually a great question. I'm gonna lay out everything. So if you're watching at home or listening, get out your notebook, because I'm gonna lay out literally everything that you need. If they kind of remember from our conversation, you have to have, if you can't be well without healing, and you can't perform without well, right? Or wellness. So if you want to perform, if you want to be like that person, you have to go through wellness, and you have to go through healing first.
And before you jump into it, I just saw, what's his name? Thor Bjornsson. I don't know how to pronounce his name. The giant, world's strongest man dude.
Yeah.
He just got a new coach and started doing all of this stuff with him.
Yeah.
And so even world-class athletes can get more world-class. So it's so easy to look at the best in the world and be like, well, they're eating Cheetos and they're doing this. And it's like, so what he did is he cleaned up his side. He did a lot of these things you're about to talk about.
Yeah.
And now it took Megan take a couple steps back, and then he shot. He's crushing it now.
That's actually huge. I'm glad you mentioned take a couple steps back, because what people think is when they do those practices and like they start to see negative, the quote unquote negative results, like they've dropped in performance.
Yeah.
What they don't realize is that they're creating a slingshot. They're creating like or potential energy.
Like the double bounce on a trampoline.
Exactly, right? Yeah. The double bounce, right? You have to take a step back sometimes, just relay the foundation, and then you just skyrocket.
And the reason I wanted to bring that up before you got too deep into it is I just like people to remember that it's like, this isn't about just like working out in a way to be perfect. It's like we can still talk good quality, healthy life and extremely high performance, and coming around and with the top CrossFitters, the top world's strongest man, the top athletes. It's like this stuff is penetrating to the highest levels, and the people who are already at the highest levels are getting even better because of this stuff. So this isn't like only for the people who want to be lame and take it easy. Like this is going to be everybody.
This is like kind of a for everybody. And the reason being is because it's the name of the game that we're all playing is physics, right? If you think about like biology is the manifestation of chemistry, and chemistry is the manifestation of physics, and so we're all really playing that game of physics. And so and the practices that I'm about to explain I've used for professional athletes. I've used with Mike Rogers, came to see me for a while. Mike Rogers is right now the United States fastest man. And he worked his way up to get to that point, right? And so he's going to represent the United States in the 100-meter dash, which is awesome, And I've worked with baseball players, football players, all that stuff, which is awesome. But I guess the main point though is that because we're all working under the same fundamental laws of physics, if you just know what those are and you can set yourself up for success, like it's like Bill Belichick knows the rules of the game better than other people, and he reads the lines, and so I literally watched him once, and he actually used it was like a weird rule that he was able to take 45 seconds off the clock and hold the ball because he knew the rules of the game better, and so it gives him an opportunity to win, right?
Exactly.
And so that's what this is, right? It's like you still have to obviously do the work, but if you know the rules of the game, then you can
optimize your efforts.
Exactly, you can optimize. And so we have actually already identified the rules, which is chaos, right? Breakdown and order. And so if you know those two things, it's like those are self-evident things, but if you just take a second and appreciate that for what it is, and you recognize that this law of breakdown is the reason you have destruction in your life, you have the results you don't want, just like take a second, right? Accept that and be like, okay, what do I
because that's natural. That'll always be there.
Be there.
It's about controlling and understanding it.
The reason you don't have the finances you want, the reason you don't have the relationship you want, the reason you don't live in the economy you want, whatever, it's because of breakdown, right? And people are like, wait, what? I don't understand that. But consider this, right? Between breakdown and order, there's exchange. And that's where the function of life is, right? And again, it sort of seems high level, but it's actually very fundamental and very simple. A relationship doesn't exist without an exchange of energy, without exchange of communication, right? A market or a business doesn't exist without the exchange of currency. So there's literally energy being exchanged. So if like you have apples and I have hunger, and I come to you and I don't have any money, you're like, you don't have any apples, right? So nothing has been exchanged, right? And so the same thing is true in relationships. The exchange is communication, right? So if you haven't communicated with somebody that you knew as an acquaintance from like 10 years ago, maybe you were really good friends, you don't have a relationship with that person. You have a knowledge of that person, and you have a history and a past, but you don't have exchange. So there's no relationship. And why I bring that up is that the name of the game in the human system is electrons, right? We're literally just exchanging electrons. That's why we got to eat food. We're taking the electrons from the food, and it's breaking down, and then we use that, and it goes into the mitochondria of our cells, and with oxygen, there's this little thing called the Krebs Cycle in our mitochondria, and then that takes the oxygen and the electron, and it creates what's called ATP, which is like kind of like potential energy, and then that is sent off, and then that creates energy, and then that goes up our spinal cord and into our brain, and our brain does things, and our brain sends information down. So literally all it's being exchanged is energy. That's it. All right, so knowing that, then all you have to do if you are playing at home, right, if you're like doing this game, is just make sure that that flow of energy can flow at 100%, right? So like, what does that mean? Well, know what causes breakdown, because that stops the flow of energy, and know what causes order. And so if you know what causes breakdown, you know what causes order. So it's simply that. So just do the exact opposite. So remember those 4 stresses I talked about, which is chemical, mental, physical, and spiritual. All right. So that's gonna reduce or dim the light or reduce the flow of energy. That's gonna stop the function, right? And so all you have to do is just put that in order every day, right? So what does that look like? So these are the daily practices. That was a super long-winded way to get to the daily practices, but you kind of have to like kind of know the backstory in order to get to these. So there's mental practices that I do every day, and this is the first thing. I would actually say I do my physical practices first, and then I do my mental practices second. And there is kind of some reason why. One of the reasons is, to be honest, is I want to start moving my body and just get it into alignment so that my mind can follow. Because this is a really interesting fact too. There's 10 times amount of neurons going from our body up to our brain than there is from our brain going down to our body. So oftentimes when we have mental disorders, it's not a mental disease, it's something caught up in the body that's stopping us from being able to emote the way we want to emote, or feel the emotions that we want to feel, because we're stuck in our craw, right? Like we're all stuck. So I'll do my body practices first. And what that looks like, I do some joint position work, I do some postural work, and then I do some movement patterning work. And joint position work is like lacrosse ball work, movement, mobility, stability, mobility, stability. Postural work is like a hatha yoga. Like I'll just do some like basic yoga flows. And I do, to be honest, like the same like 7 to 10 movements every morning. And then I do my primal movement patterning, which is like gorilla pose, crawling, animal walks, chameleon push-ups, hip sits. I'll do some hip extensions. I'll do all that stuff. And then I'll actually get into some squat, some lunge. I'll do some calisthenics at that point, right? So like my morning routine is like calisthenics.
About how long are we talking?
That all together.
Because is this your workout, or is this just morning?
No. Yeah, this is not even a workout. Like calisthenics, like so my calisthenics, I'll do 3 rounds, 10 push-ups, 20 sit-ups, 10 pull-ups, 20 push-ups, and 30 air squats. I'll do that 3 rounds just to get my body flowing, just to kind of move. I don't have an Airdyne, but that's like next for me. I would totally get on something that's aerobic. Yeah. Right? Move the body.
And you're not doing this for time.
Right. No,
you're making it look good.
Yeah.
For you, 10 pull-ups, not a big deal.
Right.
So this isn't, because that's like, we get accessory work questions all the time. I want to get better at pull-ups. So what you're talking about now is like what we call is working in, not working out.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's a great way to put it. This is foundational stuff. Yeah. Right. This is like, if you healing, wellness, performance. This is wellness, right? But if I had a shoulder issue, I can't even do that. Yeah. Right. Or if I had back issue, I couldn't even do that. So I got to address back issue. Or if I have mental disorder or traumas that I'm working through, I can't even do the mental stuff that I'm about to talk about. Yeah. Right. And so
this is just daily put your body through end ranges of motion.
Exactly.
Get your blood flowing.
Exactly.
Do stuff.
Absolutely. Exactly. And the reason I got into this is I had chronic low back pain, and then that helped me discover the law of breakdown. And I was like, man, I can't just go get adjusted or go to a chiropractor or PT or whatever, do massage therapy once in a while. I got to do this every day. And so then I just like, all right, that's the game. I'm going to do that. And so now I don't have chronic low back pain. I feel great. If somebody's like, hey, let's go on this like super long hike, I'd be like, yeah, I'm ready. Yeah, because I'm already in that position. Or if they want to do Everest, well, give me a month, you know, like, but I'm already there. I already have the foundation stuff. Yeah. And again, this isn't, I wouldn't even call this accessory. This is just foundational, right?
So I have a note by my coffee maker. They're sick of hearing me talk about it. It says, do mobility.
Yeah.
And I literally do exactly what you said.
Yeah.
Every single morning. And it's the goal of, I need to move, hit in ranges. I need to take out my foam roller. I need to hit a spot that's being maybe a little goofy or find one that's being goofy. I need to do squats and push. I need to do things to repattern with a high focus on just being perfect. And I'm keeping it all, like when I'm done with it, I feel great.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't feel like, oh, I just worked out, that was hard. It's like, no, I feel great.
Exactly.
And I never want to do it.
Ever.
Every morning I see that note and I'm just like,
yeah, it's like,
I do not want to do it.
Yeah,
and every time afterwards, I'm like, I'm so glad I did it.
Yeah, for
sure. And then, so how long have you been doing it now?
Oh, man, I've been doing that for 5 years. So, I started that literally, 2015, January 1st, 2015. And so, I guess it's been 5 years.
And just think of this compounding, snowballing effect that has had.
So when I would adjust people, I would like have to use my left shoulder, and I would always feel like my AC joint start to like kind of start to creep, and I'd be like, oh man, like I got to take care of that. And I started doing those gorilla poses, and that cleaned it up. And I was like, man, this is nice. This is so much.
So better. Maybe we'll need to do another video of like Dr. Dave's morning routine.
Yeah, for
Make
sure.
you put on some pants and a shirt, though.
I know, right? I know, yeah, it's true. I do it, I do it with, sometimes with my shirt off. Sometimes I'll do it in the backyard with just, with no shoes. Sun on, absolutely. That's another thing. We'll talk about that. Yeah. So
so that's the physical side.
That's the physical side.
And then you got a mental.
Exactly. Again, what we're doing is like we're combating the breakdown. I just put, so then I with that practice, I just put my physical being in order. So it's like, the way I describe it to people too, it's like, you wouldn't take a race car out on the track without making sure that the wheels are in order, that the alignment's in order, that the lube's in order. You know, it's like, you got to make sure all those things are in order.
And you wouldn't let it sit there.
Exactly.
For a month.
Right.
And then just take it out and peel it. It's like,
you got to put that thing in order. And so we got to do the same thing to our body and mind, right? And our spirit. But so that's the body practice. I will say I also add in right before everything to prime all that. I take a quarter of a lemon, squeeze it into water, 16 ounces of water, a dab of Himalayan salt because it's mineral dense, and I pound that just to get my body going, and then I'll just get into my practice.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's step number one.
That's cool.
After I've done that, now I'm going to go into my mindset practices. And I do this. I do breath work. Breath work and breath is the only system that is both conscious and subconscious. And why that's important is, remember earlier in the conversation, I was talking about 90% of our actions are subconscious. Well, it has to do with the way we're feeling, the way we're emoting, right? So if you're in a state of high anxiety or stress or just anything, and you're just like you're just going along with life, you're gonna have stressful thought. It's kind of this interesting thing, like negative begets negative and good begets good. You actually have to entrain your brain every morning to start to think positive thought, and it's hard. It sucks, right? But it's like you gotta do that.
And with our momentum clients, we have a little journal we give them.
Okay,
and
cool.
It's like name like something great in your life.
Yeah,
and it's like name something you're going to do today that's going to make today great.
Yes.
And it just gets you kind of in that mindset of just like, hey, let's just get out of just like I hate being awake.
Yeah.
And let's just take a second just to remember how great life actually is.
Absolutely.
Or could be if you do something today.
Yeah, but like consider this, man, like life is fucking amazing. Sorry for swearing, but it's amazing. I started actually truly practicing gratitude, and like even the ability to record this took years of innovation. Took like it took the first computer to even be made. It took that person to be even born. It took
and what we were talking about earlier too. And it's not just having these things made,
or like
There's some guy on YouTube. And it was funny, you said you bought the same stuff I've got.
Yeah.
But some guy on YouTube across the world told us what to buy.
I know,
so it's not because if all this stuff existed, I still wouldn't have figured out how to get it.
Right.
But now some guy was like, here's what you get. It's like, this is amazing.
Absolutely.
It's incredible.
But even consider that, like the parts for the computer are made in, some factory in China, and whether you're pro or con of that, I don't care. But like that's happening, and those people learned that skill, and it's like, oh my God. And I got here, and like there's concrete, and like somebody had to mine the rock to bring to.
And you get mad when one bug is in your house,
right? Yeah, right.
It's like
oh my God, there's a bee in the house. Like, oh, I get it, and like people get pissed, and so like how fortunate we really are, and so I've been priming that in my consciousness, and the more you prime it, then the more, just like a pattern, right? And so, for example, like I'm learning how to play guitar this year. That's like a thing. I like to pick up a new skill every year.
Cool.
And this year's guitar. And I actually learn more through the first parts of learning, because I'm recognizing, oh, I do have to do the fundamentals, and I have to just like do these steps, and I'm like, and so now like any new skill I'm learning actually comes faster because I'm like learning how to learn. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and learning how to be like, okay, I know they're telling me that I got to learn the basics, but that's boring. I'm going to move on.
Right.
And it's like, then you realize how much time you waste, and then you always go back to the basics.
You always go back to the basics.
Because you have to. So once you learn how to just, we're actually doing the basics.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you can pick up on things so much faster.
You have to do the fundamentals. And that's what the body practice is. And why? Because of breakdown, right? The law of breakdown. So when it comes to the mindset, I start with breath, and breath allows whatever state of mind I'm in, it allows for my nervous system just to kind of settle in, right? It's sort of like a prime, like, all right, we're about to do this practice. There's many different forms of breath patterning. If people are interested, I mean, I'm happy to do even a seminar on this, but you can entrain different brain states, which again, entrain different thought patterns based on breath. So you can entrain sympathetic, I'm ready to fight, through breath. You can train parasympathetic, meaning like rest and digest, through breath, and you can just be chill, right? You can train more like cognition and focus. You can it's amazing what you can train. You can actually train yourself to go to sleep through breath, which is interesting. And so
I think Wim Hof claims that he can get rid of the flu in himself through breath.
Right.
And they tested him, and they're like, we don't know how this works, but this guy's doing it.
Right.
He holds like 26 world records of like doing breath holds and ice and all of these things, but like he's learned through breath how to actually control some of his physiology, and it's just crazy.
And that like when he started coming out about that, and I was like, I kind of called bullshit.
Yeah, that was my first thought too.
So I had to try it, right? Like what, if I'm gonna call bullshit on somebody, I have to try it myself. And lo and behold, it works. And the way I knew it worked is I got stung by a bee, and it was on my foot. It was actually on my leg, and it started to swell pretty bad. And I was like, man, this hurts. And I knew that the Wim Hof breath stimulates the cortisol response, but it's a different way of stimulating it than like chronic cortisol.
Yeah.
So I did the Wim Hof breath, and I did it two cycles, and like it was, I can't even describe, but it was like my leg went like from like swollen to like, and it was like the weirdest. I was like, whoa, like that is awesome, because and what that mechanism is again epinephrine. That's what an EpiPen is, right? So it's like trying to flood your system with epinephrine if you're having a reaction like that. So it can be good in the short term, but chronically you don't want that.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, if you train it, your body doesn't sit there, and it actually goes back to a rest and digest system. So again, breath patterning, super important. So I'll do breath patterning, and then I'll do mindfulness meditation.
And then for breath patterning, it can be as simple as breathe in for 5 seconds, hold it for 5 seconds, breathe out for 5 seconds, hold it for 5 seconds for like a minute and a half to 3 minutes. You can do a billion different things also, but if you wanted to like have a morning routine that wasn't 4 hours long, you could very quickly, and then I like to sometimes do that right before I eat.
Yeah.
Just to be like, I gotta slow down a little bit and just control the breathing.
So if people are super interested in this, they can check out Heart Math Institute. And there is a breath pattern that is even simpler than that. It's just breathe in for 5, breathe out for 5. Breathe in for 5, breathe out for 5. And there's an app you can follow, and it just follows this little like, you know, dial. It's like light. It's like this little light that goes back and forth.
And then you just breathe with it.
And you just breathe with it. And what happens is that your heart and your brain become coherent. And that's a really important state, because when you're in coherence, your prefrontal cortex is alive. You can think creatively. You feel more euphoric. You feel more joy. You can actually experience and create that state rather than needing drugs or chemicals or whatever, you know, name it.
And I know, because I used to be one of the people, is you hear people talk about breath work and meditation, and you're just like, woo-woo.
Woo-woo, yeah, right.
It's like, try it once.
Right.
I don't know, April was having a stressful day one time.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, take my Calm app. It's like a meditation app.
Right.
And I was like, just go into the closet.
Yeah.
Just listen to it and breathe for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
She went in and she was like, the whole time I was sitting there going like, this is stupid, this isn't working. And she just did it. And then she came out and it was like, it's a new day. And it's like, man, life is pretty good. It is. So it's like, for people who haven't tried it, we know what this sounds like.
Yeah, right.
I've been on that side.
Right.
Try it and then make your judgment.
It's so true, man. And funny you say that too, because my best friend Todd, I served with him in the Army, and then he got a PhD in neuroscience, and so now he's a professor at UNC Wilmington, and he teaches undergrads and graduate students on neuroscience, and so they're doing all kinds of things. And I've been telling him that, like, man, you need to teach meditation and talk about this, and he's like, yeah, whatever, man, whatever. And he literally texted me this morning, this Calm app. He's like, hey, man, I've been doing this for a long time. I was like, oh my God.
Well, because when you've never done it, it sounds super stupid.
Yeah, and it
sounds like, it's just a bunch of hippies touching each other. It's like, just try it. Try it.
Right, and it's funny, like, I thinking about myself as a hippie, I'm quite the opposite, but I sort of became a hippie, right, almost.
Yeah, once you realize that a lot of what they're saying has some merit, not like, there's a lot that doesn't.
We can talk about crystals later.
Yeah. There's a lot we can, there's a lot.
Yeah, for sure. We can get out. Anyway, so breath, all right?
Okay.
Let's go first. That's good. Don't be sorry. That was good. That was a good digression. So let's digress back to breath. So I do a breath pattern. I was for a long time. I was using the inner. It's called Inner Balance. It does require that you buy their little biosensor, and I was just interested in the biofeedback, so I did that.
Is that like a headband with a light on it?
It's not that one, but it hooks up to your ear, and then you like attach it to your collar, and it literally is like on your phone, and then what happens is it ends up telling you like how coherent your heart rate variability is, so you can see exactly where that is. And I will say, like, after doing that for a while, like, I did it for 3 weeks straight, and then I had a couple days to miss, and then I did it for another 3 weeks. I found it to be quite insightful. It was pretty profound. So I was able to then
the breathing or the knowing your heart rate variability.
Well, both, because what biofeedback is, and we can do a quick digression, like a Whoop band or like a Fitbit.
Let's finish this and then let's come back to that.
Because
I feel like that could really get us going.
Yeah, but that's that's really important. Just give yourself some biofeedback, use it for 90 days, and then stop being so, like, disciplined about it. Because then, like, you weigh and measure your food for 90 days, you'll know exactly how much a handful of almonds is.
Yeah, and that's the point, is count calories maybe a couple days once in a while if you're not happy with your results to see where you are. Right. That stuff's not sustainable.
Yeah, you can't do it forever.
And you don't need a heart rate monitor to tell you to slow down your pace or speed up, or you don't need heart rate variability to tell you if you're recovered enough to work out. It's like, you should be able to feel these things.
Exactly.
But you can use it to learn what these things feel like.
That's that's the thing. You don't know what it feels like until you see it on the data, and then you're like, oh, that means I'm not recovered, or I'm too sympathetic.
And it's like, oh, that's what that feels like.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So that's why I'm a big fan of technology. Use it for 90 days or 120 days, like 4 months, and truly get the data, which is good. Okay, so anyway, coming back to mindset. So I'll do that. I'll do breath work, and then I'll do meditation, a mindfulness practice. So I'll just focus on my breath. I'll focus on different parts of my body. I'll say like calm. I'll basically put myself into that what's called theta state of mind, and I just kind of put everything on neutral. Once I do that for 15 minutes, then I'll actually do a visualization practice. And visualization has been used for millennia. There's a lot of studies being done at Southern Illinois University. They used a lot of athletes, or they did a cohort of individuals that were learning how to play piano. And so one in like the experiment group would just visualize, the other group would actually practice, and the other group, would do nothing, right? And what they found was that the experiment group and the control group, the ones that were actually practicing, progressed at the exact same amount just through visualization practices. So visualization is super powerful to be able to do that. So I'll do things like visualize myself giving talks, or
and so something I've also heard, because a lot of people think visualizing, and then it's like, oh, you visualize yourself on the podium. It's like, no. You visualize the efforts it takes
doing the work.
Doing the work.
Absolutely.
That's where that benefit is.
Exactly.
Because the other studies have shown visualizing yourself on the podium does not work.
Correct. Yeah.
But the results, it's all so positive, and like that actually does work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and there's a book called Psycho-Cybernetics written by a medical doctor who was he was a plastic surgeon, and he kind of did his own experiments. He would like do like nose jobs on people, and then he would also do visualization practices on other people, and he found that like people just want to feel happy. They want to feel good. So he had people visualize themselves as that confident individual, and they're like, oh yeah, maybe I don't need the nose job, right? Like I don't feel like I need like to change myself physically. Like I already feel good about myself. And so I've been using that in many different forms of my life, like even stepping in because once you practice it in the morning, you can actually use that. And like we were talking about earlier, you know what it feels like. So like when I show up and my kids are like, Dad, I can envision myself as like the best dad, and so I can actually be there with my kids and enjoy that that experience,
because you kind of rehearse and practice what you want yourself to do.
Exactly. Yeah. And because before, I'll be honest, like I'd get home, I'd be like, I'm tired, and I was like, man, that's not who I want to be. So like I was like, I gave myself to everybody else all day, why can I not give it to my kids? And we all sort of like have that innate feeling, but I had to genuinely visualize myself as that person. And so then what I'm working on right now is visualizing myself in an arena giving a presentation, a talk, and that's sort of like the next genesis for me, where I feel like I need to be that person. I don't know why. I just feel like I need to be that person. So anyway, yes, you visualize the work, right? What goes into it, and also that moment. Right?
And so we do it on a much smaller scale, but just for workouts. Yeah. It's like, hey, this is what you're going to feel 3 minutes in, or this is what you're going to feel on the third round. And just taking a second to be okay, then when it comes, you're not like, oh God. So it's like, you're visualizing yourself giving a speech. It's like, okay, I know I'm going to be nervous. Yes. I'm going to feel nervous, but I'm going to be okay. I've done it 1,000 times. And so then when you get nervous, you're not like, oh no, I'm nervous. What do I do? It's like, no, we knew you were going to be nervous. How could you not be?
Absolutely.
And now you just, you've practiced.
That's a really good point, because I sort of felt like I truly took a step, because through meditation, you just become sensitive and you become aware, right? And then the visualization, you are nervous in your visualization. You're like, wait, that's nervousness. And you're giving your talk in your head, or whatever. It could be anything. You can visualize literally, like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if there's validity behind winning the lottery, but maybe I want somebody to tell me if it actually works.
You'd have to visualize filling the numbers out.
Oh, right.
And that wouldn't help, but it would help you win, because you would actually go You can't win if you don't enter.
Right.
I guess that would be. But
I know.
Visualizing winning wouldn't help.
I know, right?
But visualizing filling it out might help you actually go fill it out.
Maybe. Somebody do that. I'd be really curious, right? But anyway, it's powerful because then you witness yourself like nervous. I was like, oh, that's nervousness. But then you just keep going in the visualization. Mm-hmm. You're like it's like you push through. Like you see the roadblocks happening. And you find a course of action outside of the emotion of it, like, because like it's not really, there's no ego attached to it. Like there's no like want for love or appreciation. Like it's like no, you just move around it, right? Like that.
And so many people are scared of thinking of like what could potentially happen negatively in a scenario. It's like, I don't want to think about that. It's like, this is what the military, this is what astronauts, this is what people do all the time. Absolutely. All they do is think about all the bad things that can go wrong. So when something goes wrong, it's not a big deal.
Absolutely.
It's like the coaches here, and this is a much different level than astronauts, but like we coach, or we plan our classes out, and we all kind of do it in the same manner. And it's in a way with all these kind of checks and balances where it's like, we're planning for things to go wrong. So that way it's like, oh, something's going wrong in the class and we're off by the time we know exactly what we're doing here. Oh, it starts raining. It's like, we've thought of this scenario. Or everybody in the whole gym shows up to one class. It's like, uh-oh. What are we doing? It's like, we've thought of these scenarios. And it doesn't mean you handle them perfectly, but it's like, it's not the first time we've ever thought about this.
And I think that what you just touched on is the biggest difference between what reality is and what the personal development world is talking about, which is just think positive, right? It's actually visualizing, doesn't necessarily mean thinking positive per se. It is thinking about, again, like at this point in the practice, again, you've done breath work, you put yourself into order, you've done the meditation, you're just relaxed. You're visualizing, you're genuinely witnessing yourself and just going through all the things that could go wrong. And like, again, there's zero ego attachment to it. So like, you're just practicing. That's really all you're doing, right? So that's super powerful. So again, visualization. I will say after that, it is important to do what's next, which is priming. So I will do a priming practice, which is, again, it's you could perceive it as positive thought, but it's literally in training the state of emotion I want to experience over the course of the day. So I've been working with gratitude. It's the easiest one because we know what gratitude feels like. But what I started realizing is, dude, there is so much beauty in this world. Like I took so much for granted. Like everything from cardboard boxes to a table to an iPhone to whatever. Like I was taking so much for granted. And I started just doing that like slowly. And again, just like learning guitar, it's like awkward and you fumble and you're like, oh, this hurts.
And then
like,
just going through that, then you see someone play guitar and you're just
you're like, dude, how do you do that?
Now I'm amazed.
And I've been doing it, I guess, what is it? Since January 5th, I picked up the guitar or whatever that day was. It was like a Sunday, the Sunday after the New Year's Day, because it was like a Wednesday. And I started just playing and I was like playing chords pretty fast. And I was like, oh man, and it's only been a month. And I'm like, this is pretty good.
That's awesome.
So the kind of the same thing with gratitude. Like that's been my primary focus for this year is gratitude and genuinely practicing that. And so now I can almost like fall back into gratitude like whenever I want. And so then I can be like, oh man, I'm so grateful for this or so grateful for that. And it becomes infectious. And then it helps me then reach out to people. Like I hadn't talked to you in a bit. And so I was able to reach out to you and I was like, oh, I haven't talked to Kyle in a minute. So then you're like, hey man, let's go do this thing. And I'm like, awesome, let's do that thing. And so because I was feeling good, you know, it's just like, and so those practices then, again, from a healthy perspective, put me in order. And so this is what's really interesting, like touching on that last point, why this is so important is that a lot of people think like, oh, well, this will just make me healthy, right? And then, put that in a box and put that to the side. Well, no, that will actually infuse itself into literally every area of your life. If you don't put yourself in order, that's why I teach health, and like I feel like that is the primary area. Is if you don't put yourself in order, then every other area of your life is going to be affected by it. So for me, I was practicing gratitude. I was in a great state. I was able to reach out to you. You're like, hey, let's go do this thing. Maybe something good comes of it. Maybe somebody else from a different gym sees it, and then they link me up to some guru that, hey man, I like what you're talking about. You want to come speak on my stage? I don't know. Like maybe that's the thing, right? So my visualization turns into a reality, right? So then it just like good things become good things. So you actually get the results you want in life when you're healthy and not the other way around, right? A lot of people think, oh, I'm going to go get the results I want, from like financial perspective, and I'm going to have the wife and the kids and the and then I'll worry about. It's like, no, it doesn't work that way.
They think
right?
Being healthy is like, okay, if I'm healthy now, instead of living to 80, I'm going to live to 90. And they're like, I don't really care.
Right, yeah.
Because they're just imagining being, and it's like, no,
right.
It boosts everything
exactly
immediately.
Absolutely.
But when you put that long-term thing, it's like, yeah, that's the worst motivation in the world to clean your diet up. It's like, that's a terrible motivation.
Absolutely.
No one cares about then.
Absolutely.
It's so far from now.
And so when I teach people, I help them recognize that health is not just like being able to like do yoga when you're 90. Like we were just kind of talking. We got our alarm just went off, so we'll wrap it ish up. But health is not, again, it's not just like it's not just in this box again that you put away and then it doesn't infuse it into the rest of your life. It genuinely affects every aspect of your life ever, because if you're not taking responsibility for yourself, how are you going to truly take responsibility in your family, in your finances, in your with your children, in your business, etc.? And so if you're showing up, your body's feeling good, you're feeling energized, you've done that foundational work, you get some good nutrients in you, you've done, like we were just talking about, now you can show up and get the results you want in work and life. And so when I tell people, like, I help them be unbreakable, right? I teach them the law breakdown and how to combat that so then they can be unbreakable. They just keep going at that.
Yeah.
People think that that's kind of like a hokey name, but it's not, because it's just knowing the rules of the game, right?
Yeah.
You know what breakdown is, you know how to be unbreakable if you just keep putting order into the system, and that's it.
Yeah.
You just keep going forward. And then you can show up and work into the world ready to get the results you want in work and life. And because we all want the money, we all want the house, we all want and that's okay. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. We all think like, oh, that's ego and all that stuff. It's like, yeah, sure, but it's a lot more fun to drive in a Ferrari than it is in a Pinto, right? I don't know why I just took out a 70s car reference, but or a Camry, but it just it's okay. And I think that's important for people to know, like, their dreams are okay. That's the whole spiritual health I was talking about. A lot of people put not okayness in their dreams, and I started embracing that. I started recognizing, my dreams are okay. It's okay that I have dreams, and they're
still your dreams.
You're right.
I feel like a lot of people are still following dreams of 10 years old them, and they feel like they can't let them go. And it's maybe those aren't your real dreams anymore.
Right. Or they've morphed, right? Like, I even when I was 10, I wanted a Ferrari. I still want a Ferrari. That's why I brought it up. I mean, like, and it's like, I'm sure I'm going to have it for like a year, and I'm going to probably sell it, because I'll be like, I didn't need this. And people are going to be like, you told you so. I was like, but I got to know, right? I got to sit in it and drive it.
And that's the thing is that, and that's why so many people get frozen, because they're like, well, if I try and go towards my dreams, what if I don't make it? It's like, no. Here's the thing is, all we know is those aren't your dreams. We know you're going to start going towards those dreams, and then you're going to learn so much about yourself, and you're going to be like, why did I care about that? I'm going this way.
Absolutely.
And then what we know is those aren't your dreams either, but you got to start going down there so you figure out what they actually are. But so many people get paralyzed and so scared, and they're like, well, if I could only be whatever. You pick it. And it's like, you got to start that way, because you probably don't even want to be that thing that you are idle, like, you're putting it up on this pedestal. It's probably not even something you actually want. It might be. And that's even more reason to go for it.
Dude,
but it's probably not.
Exactly.
It's probably something-ish, but you got to learn.
You know what's interesting about that point, too? And I don't know how much time we got. We could sit here and just talk forever. But I imagine it like you're sitting on the Grand Canyon, like on the South Rim, and you see on the North Rim like a vision of your dreams, as if it's like a store, right? And you like see like the big sign, you're like, that's it. And then you go into the canyon, and it's like it's got a fog layer, and you forget what you're doing, and you sort of get stuck down there for a long time. But the way I describe it to people is that the reason you have to go down and come back up is that everything in the world is, in the universe, if you will, is relative, right? So again, like, you can't have rich without poor. You can't have happy without sad. You can't have tall without short. And so if you put in your dream I want to have the best relationship ever. It's going to be connected. It's going to be loving. It's going to be this and that and this. You have to experience the worst relationship ever just to understand the value of the best relationship ever. And that's really important. Like the billionaires, I've been studying people that like have been very successful. They all have one thing in common. They've all failed miserably before they become successful. And I'm like, there's something to that. And why do they do that? Is so that they could experience the feelings and just have the experience of just like the bag of crap, right? In order for them to truly appreciate the golden egg and even the goose that lays the golden egg, right? Like they don't even know, like I'm sure you've heard this all the time, like somebody either wins the lottery or they come into money young, like, you know, these like NFL players or like Major League Baseball players or whoever, and they squander the money because they don't appreciate it, and then it goes away, and then they have the struggle, and then they have to rebuild themselves back up, and so we hear those stories all the time, and that's just the nature of life, right? And so why I even teach what I teach now is because I got beat up, right? Physically, mentally, chemically, emotionally, spiritually. And so I recognized, oh, that's what we all want. We all want, of course, like the good feelings and like, yeah, like the cars and the house and that. Like, of course, like that's a good thing. And like it's like by design, like we're meant to want those things. But the reason we want those things is so that we grow our character. We go get beat up. We learn, okay, I'm going to humble myself. I'm going to do the work. I'm going to go down the middle. I'm going to be well. I'm going to do the fundamental stuff because the universe is based on physics, right? And now it's like, all right, now I can step forward one step at a time. And so then you realize, oh yeah, I did just want this the whole time. Yeah. I just actually wanted the work that would get me there. Yeah. And that's it. So that's why I love meditating now. I love doing breath work. I love jumping in cold water. Right, that's another thing, right? Yeah. You know, so it's just fascinating. Like, you recognize that you wanted the work, you never wanted the outcome. Yeah, which is weird.
We should have scheduled 6 hours for us to talk.
I know.
That's what always happens.
I feel like this is a good place to end, though. Yeah.
Okay, so real quick, just so people don't think if they come to you, you're just gonna sit with them in a room and be like crisscross applesauce and hold hands and breathe together.
Yeah, for sure.
When you go see Dr. Dave, he's a chiropractor. He jams his hands in you. He makes you scream.
It's good.
He shows you rehab exercises. He gives you homework. So there's the huge actual like therapy side of getting people moving and their joints working and all of that, along with the bigger picture of how all of this stuff links together.
So when people come in, just to kind of touch on what you're just talking about, we just, number one, we identify where you at, right? We gotta figure out that first, and then we figure out, okay, are we in a healing process? Are we in just a wellness process, or do we want to do a performance thing? And then we approach each one of those differently. And so if we're in a healing process, sometimes that takes some work. That takes a bit of money and an investment, right? It is what it is, right? You got to heal. You got to just get all the crap out. And if you're in a foundational or a wellness, right, that's easy. You know, like I can just adjust somebody and just like, see ya, I'll see you next time you need it. And how do you know you need it? Because the breakdown's always going on. Like next time you come in, maybe 2 weeks, maybe a month, like check you out. All right, need an adjustment again? Great. Again, that's just from the physical aspect of it. And then the performance side, then that's where we talk about mindset performance and like overcoming and all that stuff. We talk about I do a like strength integration programming. I actually will help people reestablish themselves physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually from that space in the performance side of things. So where most people come in is going to be in the healing side because they're hurt, they're sick, they're injured, they're just not getting the results they want, right? So we identify that, and then like I said, they come in, we'll do the adjustment, we'll use that as a tool, as a modality. We do yoga up at the office, which is just, again, like the foundational stuff. It's all the stuff I do in the morning that I just explained, just in classroom format, right? And it's just 1 day a week. It's on Wednesdays. So if people want to do the foundational work, they can do that. I have an online academy where people can like do a lot of that stuff for themselves. Nice. And that was one of my biggest things, that I wanted people to be able to do this for themselves. Yeah. And so even if they are in a healing process or a pattern, they can take the reins for themselves and they can start to apply the correct healing modalities, whether physically, mentally, emotionally, We won't talk spiritually stuff yet, but there is spirituality, and I won't go into it, but it's like it's not kumbaya stuff, but it's like it's knowing your dream and going after it, being willing to go after it. And if you feel that that's not available to you, then you're spiritually stressed. That's pretty much it. That's how it goes. And so we have a retreat coming up at the end of the year. It's going to be a 7-day retreat, and it's going to be intense, man. It's going to be awesome. I'm going to show people themselves.
Awesome.
Break them down. It's not for everybody, I'll be honest. It's for people who are ready to like witness themselves, go into their traumas, break themselves down, see what they were meant to do on this planet, and then help them move forward. It's the form of initiation in tribal societies would always do that. We've lost that in America, in the West, in modern society. So I feel like we need it now more than ever.
Well, cool.
Yeah, man.
How do they find you?
They can either go to our website, unbreakablebodylab.com. They could find me on Instagram at Dr Dave Cohodes, Cohodes. Or if people just have questions, they can email me, Dr Dave, DRDAVE, at unbreakableself.com. So Unbreakable Self is kind of the overall umbrella of what I'm doing. So,
perfect.
Yeah, man.
All right. Awesome. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.